Okay, welcome to a vocabulary class. Today we're going to look at idioms and phrases for relationships. So a lot of romance today. But of course, for any romance to work, you and your partner have to meet halfway sometimes. You have to compromise. When you meet somebody halfway, and when you say, meet me halfway, you mean compromise with me. Let's find some position in between both of us that is good for both of us. Let's meet each other halfway. Yeah, so meet somebody halfway, compromise with somebody on something. And of course, to make any romance work, you must compromise sometimes. You must meet each other halfway. And another way of saying this is that there must be some give and take in the relationship. So in other words, you both give and you both take. Yeah, it's not just one person doing all the giving and the other person doing all the taking. That would be extremely unfair, extremely unequal relationship. But we need a relationship with some give and take, with some compromise, where both partners compromise sometimes. They don't just take and they don't just give. They do both. So there must be some give and take in any relationship. Otherwise it won't work. Well, most of the time anyway. And I don't want you to mix up this binomial. A binomial is a two-part expression, usually with an and or an or in between the two parts, but it might be a preposition, but it's usually a conjunction, an and or an or. Don't confuse give and take, which means compromise, with give or take, which means roughly. You say, I spent £1,000 on a new computer, give or take a few pounds. Yeah, maybe it was a bit cheaper than 1,000, maybe it was a bit more than 1,000, but give or take a few pounds means, in that region, maybe a few more pounds, maybe a few, maybe a few pounds less. And so remember this give or take an inch. Yeah, I'm 6 foot, give or take an inch. And so I might be a little bit under 6 foot. I might be a little bit over 6 foot. I think I'm a bit under actually, but only a tiny bit. So I'm 6 foot, give or take a centimetre. I think I'm about half a centimetre smaller than 6 foot. Okay, and 6 foot is 180 centimetres. Okay, and an inch is a 1/12 of a foot. Okay, but remember this expression because you can use it whenever you're approximating some quantity, and you'll say give or take a few centimetres, give or take an inch, give or take a few pounds. Okay, now money, talking about pounds, money often drives a wedge between friends or between lovers. I think very often people in love, after the romance period, the honeymoon period is over. The honeymoon period happens at the beginning. Yeah, a honeymoon is technically the holiday that you both go on after getting married to celebrate your marriage. But the honeymoon period is another way of saying the start of a relationship. And so in the honeymoon period, you're both head over heels in love. And we had that expression in another class. So you're both head over heels in love in the honeymoon period. But when that finishes, you might start to argue. You might go through a bad patch, a rough patch, a sticky patch. And you might start to argue about typical things like money. I think people very often argue about money. And so money can drive a wedge. It can separate friends. It can drive a wedge. A wedge goes between two things and drives them apart. It separates two things. So money often drives a wedge between friends or between lovers or between married couples. So here's a bit of advice. Don't live in each other's pockets. Now, clearly we're talking about your pocket here, but this is an idiom, which means if you're living in each other's pockets, that means that you are always together. You're always doing everything together. You never give each other some space or some room to breathe. And another way of saying don't live in each other's pockets is don't live on top of each other. Yeah, now that might sound funny to you because obviously there are some moments when you are on top of each other, but don't constantly live on top of each other. It means don't live too close to each other. Don't invade each other's personal space all the time. I mean, sometimes, okay, but all the time it will get annoying for each of you. Both of you need some space. Both of you need some time alone. Both of you need some room to breathe.